The lights dimmed, the crowd erupted, and Meghan Markle walked onto the Daily Show stage, flashing the polished smile that had carried her through countless interviews. This wasn't her first time in front of cameras, but this was different. She wasn't seated in Oprah's carefully curated garden. She wasn't behind Netflix's glossy filters or under Spotify's polished sound mixing. This was Jon Stewart's stage, unpredictable, unscripted, and ruled by one of the sharpest comedic minds in television history. Meghan thought she could charm the audience with her now familiar persona, the relatable Duchess. She leaned into the performance almost instantly, speaking about her life as if she were just another working mom juggling kids, career, and expectations. She told a story about grocery shopping, about cooking for Harry, about how people don't see the everyday side of me. But Stewart wasn't buying it. With a raised eyebrow and his trademark smirk, he pounced, "Yeah, nothing says relatable like avocado toast on a balcony bigger than my entire apartment." The audience exploded. Laughter rolled across the studio like a wave. Meghan froze for a split second, her smile stiffening before she forced out a laugh. But the damage was already done. Stewart had ripped the glossy packaging off her relatable Duchess act and exposed the contradiction beneath. Meghan's relatability had always been her most fragile weapon. For critics, it was never believable that a woman living in a $14 million Montecito mansion, surrounded by security, staff, and PR consultants, could truly embody the struggles of the average person. Stewart hadn't just poked fun, he had nailed the very hypocrisy that her critics screamed about online every single day. The laughter didn't stop. It grew louder with Stewart riding the wave. "Don't get me wrong, Meghan. I believe you have problems. Like, oh no, which wing of the mansion are we having dinner in tonight?" "That's a tough one." Meghan's face betrayed her. The mask of calm began to crack. She fidgeted with her hands, her voice rising an octave as she tried to laugh along. But Stewart's comedy had turned the spotlight into a microscope, and the audience wasn't with her anymore. They were with him. It was only the beginning. Meghan tried to recover, steering the conversation toward her favorite subject: privacy. She began rehearsing the lines she had delivered 100 times before. She spoke about the need to protect her children, about the pain of constant scrutiny, about the toll of public exposure. But Stewart leaned in, his expression deadpan, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "So privacy, but on Netflix, privacy. But in a book called Spare, privacy. But on Spotify, got it. We're all following," the crowd howled. Applause and laughter drowned out Meghan's attempt to continue. She stammered, blinking rapidly, clearly unprepared for the blunt, comedic takedown. Stewart wasn't finished. He gestured dramatically, pacing like a stand-up comedian delivering the punchline of the year. "Look, Meghan, if I keep telling people I don't want attention but then release a 6-part docuseries called Me, Me, and Me Again, I can't really complain when people keep looking, right?" The audience erupted again, louder this time. Some were practically doubled over in their chairs, clapping and laughing. Meghan, meanwhile, shifted uncomfortably. Her smile turned brittle, her eyes darting to the cameras as if to plead for control. The contradictions had always haunted Meghan's narrative. How could she demand privacy while signing multi-million-dollar deals to broadcast her life? How could she attack the monarchy for its restrictions while simultaneously clinging to titles, privileges, and royal branding? Stewart distilled those contradictions into simple, hilarious sound bites, each one sharper than the last. And it worked because it wasn't angry. It wasn't tabloid sensationalism. It was comedy rooted in truth. Every time Meghan tried to pivot, Stewart cut in with another observation. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't shouting. But his timing, his tone, and his mock-serious delivery made every word land like a hammer. By the time the audience laughter subsided, Meghan's image had shifted. She wasn't the dignified Duchess, the polished speaker, the feminist icon. She was the punchline, the self-contradicting celebrity who wanted both privacy and fame, and Stewart had just exposed it all with a grin. Then came the moment no one expected. Stewart leaned back, smirked, and said casually, "Look, we've all had summer jobs. Some of us scooped ice cream. Some of us waited tables. Some of us, well, let's just say some jobs don't come with uniforms." The studio erupted. gasps mixed with laughter. The implication was crystal clear, a sly nod to Meghan's long-whispered yacht girl past, the rumors that had followed her from Hollywood to Buckingham Palace. Meghan's face drained of color. She froze, her hands clasped tightly on her lap. She forced out a brittle laugh, but her eyes betrayed panic. The audience, meanwhile, laughed harder, clapping and whistling as Stewart sat back, his grin widening. He didn't say the words outright. He didn't have to. Comedy thrives on implication, and Stewart's joke had struck at one of Meghan's most carefully guarded secrets. The more Meghan tried to mask her discomfort, the more obvious it became. The internet lit up within minutes. Twitter exploded with clips of the joke. TikTok creators looped Meghan's shocked reaction with captions like, "When he knows your resume better than you do." Instagram Reels replayed the moment with side-by-side photos of Meghan's Hollywood days. Amplifying the insinuation, Meghan tried to regain control, launching into a serious monologue about women being unfairly judged for their pasts. But Stewart undercut her instantly. "Don't worry, Meghan. Nobody's judging. We're just laughing. And sometimes that's worse." The audience roared again. Stewart had done the impossible, turned Meghan's most sensitive rumors into comedy gold, while making her look flustered and defensive. In that moment, the Duchess wasn't untouchable. She wasn't powerful. She was rattled, exposed, and utterly at the mercy of a host who had weaponized humor against her polished facade. Up until now, Jon Stewart's roast had zeroed in on Meghan. But then, with a mischievous glint in his eye, he turned the spotlight onto Prince Harry, and the audience knew it was about to get even better. Stewart leaned forward, deadpan serious, as if he were delivering breaking news. "So, Harry, how's he doing? Because every time I see him on Netflix, he looks like he's blinking out Morse code. Like, save me!" The audience erupted. Roars of laughter bounced off the studio walls. Some people clapped, others whistled, and one voice from the crowd shouted, "Blink twice, Harry!" Stewart pointed toward the audience member and grinned. "Exactly. Someone gets it." Meghan tried to keep her composure, but the forced smile on her face said it all. She shifted uncomfortably, brushing an invisible strand of hair from her cheek, her laugh hollow and brittle. Stewart wasn't finished. He continued, walking the comedic knife edge with perfect balance. "I mean, the poor guy went from Buckingham Palace to, what is it now? Chicken coops in Montecito? That's the dream, right? To go from a crown to collecting eggs," the crowd howled. Meghan's shoulders stiffened. This wasn't just a jab at Harry's lifestyle change. It was a mirror held up to the absurdity of the Sussexes' post-royal narrative. For years, critics had suggested Harry looked diminished beside Meghan. Less a prince, more a prop. Stewart distilled that criticism into sharp, laugh-out-loud punchlines that resonated instantly. And the audience? They were eating it up. By now, the energy in the room was undeniable. The Daily Show crowd, primed for comedy but wary of controversy, had chosen sides. And they weren't with Meghan. Every time she tried to speak, the audience drowned her out with laughter at Stewart's interruptions. When she attempted to explain the hardships of life in Montecito, someone in the audience actually groaned audibly, and Stewart pounced, "Oh no, hardships." Like when the pool isn't heated to exactly 82 degrees. Devastating. The place went wild. Meghan chuckled stiffly, but the camera caught her blinking rapidly, a telltale sign of someone struggling to maintain composure under pressure. Stewart, sensing the audience's energy, leaned into it even more. His comedic rhythm was impeccable. Meghan spoke, Stewart interrupted, the audience roared. It wasn't just comedy anymore. It was domination. The crowd had flipped, and they were laughing at Meghan, not with her. What made it worse was how obvious it became. Meghan wasn't controlling the narrative. She wasn't basking in applause like she had with Oprah or at the Invictus Games. Instead, she was boxed into a corner. Hemmed in by Stewart's wit and the audience's loyalty to his every punchline, the power dynamics had shifted completely. Meghan was no longer the Duchess holding court. She was the guest who had lost the room. But Meghan Markle is nothing if not determined. Even in the face of humiliation, she tried to seize back control. When Stewart quipped about her endless media appearances, Meghan forced a smile and snapped, "Well, Jon, people wouldn't keep watching if they weren't interested. It was supposed to be a mic drop moment." Instead, Stewart tilted his head, grinned, and fired back instantly. "Interested?" "Meghan, they're not interested. They're entertained. And right now, you're giving them the best season of reality TV they've ever seen." The audience roared so loudly that Meghan's attempted retort was drowned out completely. She gestured with her hands, tried to speak over the laughter, but it was pointless. Stewart had landed another devastating blow, and the crowd wasn't going to let her wriggle free. Still, she tried. She leaned in, her voice sharper now, her smile tighter. "I don't think mocking my family is comedy." Stewart leaned back in his chair, his smirk widening. "No, you're right. Comedy is about truth. And that's what makes this so funny." The studio exploded once more. It wasn't just laughter anymore. It was catharsis. Years of pent-up eye-rolling at Meghan's contradictions, her endless interviews, her carefully packaged narratives. All of it was being released in real time through Jon Stewart's comedy. Meghan sat frozen, her smile stretched thin, her fingers nervously tapping against her thigh. She had walked into The Daily Show thinking she could control the story. Instead, she became the story, the punchline of the night, roasted by one of comedy's sharpest minds. The episode wasn't even over before the internet exploded. Within minutes of Meghan's disastrous appearance, clips of Jon Stewart's sharpest jokes were everywhere: Twitter, X, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube shorts. The biggest hit? Stewart's quip about Meghan's contradictions. "So, privacy, but on Netflix? Privacy? But in a book called Spare? Privacy. But on Spotify?" Got it. That 10-second clip went viral instantly. TikTok creators remixed it with dramatic zooms on Meghan's frozen smile. Some edited it with sarcastic captions like "The Duchess of Exposure." Others spliced it with scenes of Harry looking lost in Netflix's Harry and Meghan, cutting back to Stewart's deadpan delivery. By the end of the night, hashtags like "Doc Stewart destroys Meghan," "Das Blink Harry," and "Das Yacht Girl Exposed" were trending worldwide. Twitter timelines flooded with memes, comparing Meghan's face during the roast to reality TV stars court. Mid-scandal, Instagram Reels leaned hard into aesthetics. Some creators layered the clip with dramatic background music, others captioned it as "the roast Meghan never saw coming." A single screenshot of Meghan's strained laugh under Stewart's mockery circulated widely, gaining hundreds of thousands of shares in hours, and then came YouTube. Reaction channels jumped on the moment, dissecting every line, replaying the Yacht Girl reference in slow motion, and pausing to show Meghan's micro-expressions. The twitch of her eye, the stiffness of her posture, the sudden silence in her laugh. It was a frenzy, and Meghan wasn't in control of it. For the first time in years, the narrative wasn't scripted by her PR team. It was written by comedians, internet users, and millions of ordinary viewers who saw through her polished act. As the clips gained momentum, the critics piled on. This wasn't just late-night comedy anymore. It was cultural commentary, and Stewart's roast had cracked something open. Columnists from major outlets chimed in. Entertainment reporters described the appearance as a train wreck for Meghan's brand. One headline read, "Jon Stewart says what we've all been thinking about Meghan Markle." Another mocked. From Duchess to Punchline, Meghan's Daily Show disaster. Piers Morgan predictably seized the moment. He tweeted, "Finally someone had the guts to roast Meghan Markle on live TV. Bravo, Jon Stewart. Spot on." His post gained hundreds of thousands of interactions, reigniting old debates. Even comedians who usually avoided royal drama weighed in. Bill Maher joked on his podcast, "I've been saying for years she's a performance artist in victimhood. Stewart just did it in 10 seconds. And funnier." Ricky Gervais laughed in an interview. "I wish I'd said that Netflix privacy line. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant." Political commentators also joined the conversation. They noted the irony that Meghan, who styled herself as a voice for truth and courage, had been exposed as fragile under real comedic scrutiny. "If you can't survive Jon Stewart," one commentator said, "you can't survive public opinion." For Meghan's critics, it was vindication. For her fans, it was painful. But for everyone else, it was entertainment. A cultural moment that blurred the line between news and comedy, roasting and reality, and most damning of all, the consensus was unmistakable. Meghan Markle hadn't just been a guest on The Daily Show. She had been dismantled, with wit sharper than any tabloid headline, leaving her polished facade cracked beyond repair. When the camera stopped rolling and the laughter faded from the Daily Show studio, Meghan Markle's team scrambled into crisis mode. For years, her strategy had been airtight: control the narrative, handpick interviewers, script the story. But Jon Stewart's roast had shattered that illusion. And worse, it was all over the internet before her motorcade even pulled away from the studio doors. Sources close to the Sussexes whispered that Meghan's PR staff immediately began contacting media outlets, urging them to contextualize the segment as light-hearted comedy. They pushed sympathetic bloggers to spin it as playful banter, insisting Meghan had laughed along. But the footage told another story: the stiff smile, the frozen posture, the flashes of panic in her eyes. No press release could erase that. Inside Montecito, tension rose. Meghan reportedly fumed over Stewart's disrespect, demanding why her team hadn't vetted the appearance more carefully. Harry, already bruised from years of public mockery, was said to be deeply shaken by becoming a punchline himself. And the worst blow? The couple's powerful ally stayed silent. Oprah didn't weigh in. Netflix avoided comment. Spotify executives, burned from their collapsed partnership with Meghan, smirked quietly from the sidelines. The silence was deafening and telling. Behind the scenes, Meghan's advisors debated the next move. Should she lean into victimhood, claiming Stewart had been cruel? Or ignore it completely, hoping the internet storm would die down? In the end, they tried both, but neither worked. Victimhood clashed with the obvious. Stewart hadn't been mean. He had been funny. And ignoring it was impossible because the memes weren't stopping. The Sussex machine, once a juggernaut of image control, looked fragile, clumsy, and outdated. Stewart had ripped through Meghan's defenses in under 20 minutes, leaving her PR team scrambling to fix a wound that wouldn't heal. The fallout from Meghan's Daily Show disaster was swift and brutal. For years, she had carefully crafted an image of poise, control, and victim-turned-hero resilience. But after Stewart's roast, that image cracked, and the world saw the fractures. Mainstream outlets replayed the clip endlessly. Every news recap included Stewart's line about privacy on Netflix and the yacht girl joke. Podcasts dissected her body language. YouTubers replayed her frozen smile in slow motion, pointing to each micro-expression as proof that the Duchess had finally been unmasked. Public opinion polls showed a dip in her favorability ratings, not massive but noticeable. People who had once defended her as misunderstood now admitted she looked entitled, even hypocritical. The Daily Show clip became shorthand for Meghan's contradictions, a memeable, viral moment that condensed years of criticism into one devastating roast. And perhaps most damaging of all, Meghan's attempts to pivot afterward fell flat. When she returned to Netflix's With Love, Meghan, critics mocked it as more of the same. When she spoke about women's empowerment at a charity gala, Stewart's punchline about truth being funnier than PR resurfaced in headlines. No matter what she did, the roast lingered like a shadow, reminding everyone of the night her contradictions were laid bare on national television. Jon Stewart, meanwhile, emerged untouchable. His reputation as a cultural sharpshooter was cemented once again. Clips of the roast became part of his highlight reel, replayed alongside his most iconic moments from the Bush and Trump eras. For Meghan, however, the legacy was darker. She hadn't just lost an interview. She had lost control of her image. Her contradictions were no longer whispered in tabloids or debated in podcasts. They had been laughed at mercilessly by millions of viewers. And laughter, once unleashed, is impossible to silence. The verdict from the court of public opinion was brutal, final, and unforgettable. Meghan Markle didn't just appear on The Daily Show. She was destroyed on it,